Welcome to NACTV Reads the News. My name is Cathy McGrath, and I'm one of many volunteers that help create programming for our station. NACTV can be seen on MTS Channel 30 or 1030, Westman Cable Channel 17, Bell Satellite Channel 592, or online at nactv.tv. These programs are made possible by our volunteers, staff, advertisers, as well as donations made by you, the viewers. If you are enjoying your NACTV experience, please consider supporting us by either donation or volunteering. You can contact our office at 204-476-2639 or at nactv@wcgwave.ca. And today's edition of the Neepawa Banner and Press is for Friday, April 14th, 2023. And there's a good news article on the front page, Restoring a Cherished Family Gift. Lane Englund works to recreate the quilt taken during the exhibition by Owen Devereaux. And here Lane is posed next to the recreation of a quilt that was stolen during a public showing in Neepawa in November of 2022. While it cannot completely replace what was lost, a new quilt recently finished by Lane Englund will have a whole new and special meaning, not just to her family, but for all of Neepawa as well. After nearly 2 months of dedicated effort, Englund has been able to recreate an alphabet dinosaur design she made for her grandson. The reason for this necessary recreation was because the original cherished gift from grandma to grandson was stolen back in November of 2022. In what was supposed to be a celebration of the Tangled Threads Quilt Guild took a somber turn. Englund, who learned the art of quilting from her grandmother, was proudly displaying 3 of her works outside the Knox Presbyterian Church. The most precious and personal of these 3 was the dinosaur quilt she had made for her grandson when he was just 5 years old. In an act of support, the grandson, who is now an adult, loaned the quilt back to Englund to display as part of this special day. Then, just before the end of the festivities, Englund and the other members of the guild discovered the piece had gone missing. And a supportive community steps up to look for the missing quilt. Almost instantly, many members of the community stepped up to assist in the search for the lost family heirloom. People began looking for the piece, and messages were shared online in an effort to track down the quilt. Englund said she was very moved by the support she received. I was absolutely amazed by the immediate support. Within just a few minutes after it was missing, the message was out there. Chris Waddell put a message out on Facebook. I got home and I was able to get a picture of the quilt. Within a half hour or so, copies of it were photocopied and posters were being distributed. I'm thankful for everyone who helped. Englund added that she also received many responses from people across Canada, asking for update and offering messages of support. Despite a thorough search effort by Englund, her family, and a large number of Neepawa residents, the taken item has not yet been recovered. While saddened by the loss, Englund then turned her attention to the one thing she could do: quilt. Over the course of 2 months and about 25 hours of stitching work, Englund assembled the quilt. While it is not a perfectly exact replica, it is as near a duplication as was possible. There is not very much I changed about this one, aside from some of the colors. Maybe the food chain block as well. I added a few raindrops in the corner there, said Englund. As for the original, Englund still hopes it will eventually be returned. She does add, however, that the support shown from the community through this has added a special meaning to the new quilt. It's nice to know community support people. And the Neepawa Kin Club hosts an Easter egg hunt. And there's pictures here. The Neepawa Kin Club had favorable weather for its Easter egg hunt in the afternoon of April 8th. Eager egg hunters showed up to participate, and along with others from the community, enjoyed a free movie afterwards. All of the individuals pictured here were part of the group who attended to search for the elusive eggs. And there's quite a bunch of kids in those pictures. And now we look back in the past. 1973, curling champs take home Neepawa Press Trophy. And in the picture, Vince Martin's rink were the champions of the Neepawa Mixed Curling League and the winners of the Neepawa Press Trophy on April 11th, 1973. They had defeated Brian Bailey's rink to claim the title. Pictured are Darlene and Warren Gillies, Linda and Vince Martin, and Neepawa Press editor John Osland. So, by Gasper Warehan, we go back 125 years, 1898. A Brandon firm intends to begin the manufacture of curling stones from Manitoba granite. Fire in Hamiota on April 6 destroyed Inman's Bank, Atkinson's store, and the Hustler printing office and livery stable of McKellar and Todd. Note, it is possible that Atkinson's is meant to be Atkinson's and was misspelled in the original. Franklin, Kerr brothers, who had a large number of teams all winter drawing logs from the mountains, will commence sawing as soon as the spring work is over. Franklin, Kennedy brothers are branching out in their business by adding agricultural implements. Duncan Hamilton has moved from Neepawa to Shoal Lake. Jack Ear has repurchased the Palace Livery Stable and entered into possession on Monday. Jack is so well known to the traveling public that no introduction is necessary. Under his management, the palace will no doubt continue to flourish. John Mills, of the late Mills brothers, has taken a position with Robert Lindsay in the general blacksmith and carriage building business on Mountain Avenue, opposite the Methodist Church. Mr. Mills has abandoned all notions, if he ever had any, of seeking fortune elsewhere, Neepawa being as promising a place to him as any known at the present time. His many friends will be pleased to learn of his re-engagement in business here and will naturally extend him a share of their patronage. One snag after another is being encountered by the town authorities in their work of getting out a revised plan. The latest is in regard to Park Lake. Part of this property was granted to the town by Mr. Whaley with the provision that if it were not maintained as a lake, it should revert to him. Before the plan can be registered, it is necessary to wipe out these provisions. This Mr. Whaley will not do, and moreover he claims there has been no lake for 2 years. His right to repossession is indisputable. Neepawa's advancement has been recognized by the federal government in the establishment of a customs outpost here in charge of W.F. Young. This will greatly facilitate importations from the U.S. and Great Britain, as consignees will be saved the inconvenience and expense of engaging brokers to pass their goods through the customs at Winnipeg or Portage la Prairie. Importers of lumber and agricultural machinery will especially appreciate the change. This boon to the business interests of the town was secured through the exertions of Mr. R.C. Ennis. He was ably assisted by Dr. Rutherford in persuading the minister of his recent visit to Ottawa. 100 years ago, 1923, Brookdale, another well-known pioneer, left us recently in the person of Mrs. Frances Clegg, who died at Creeford on the 19th of March, 1923, at the age of 86. Born February 10, 1837, in Two Mountains, Quebec, she went with her family later to Huron County, Ontario, where she married Francis Clegg in 1859. In 1882, they migrated to Manitoba, settling north of Chater. What has become of the manners of yesterday? Where are the courtesy, the graciousness, the gentility of the past? Is it possible they are but part of the past? Observe the young man yonder who greets the young lady. His method of saluting her consists in grasping his hat by the brim and jerking it slightly down over his bow. His left hand remains in his trousers pocket. When they have concluded their conversation and set off on their separate ways, the youthful cavalier doesn't even bother to touch his hat. A broad grin, he feels, is quite sufficient. And yet the young lady appears not a whit disturbed at this astounding absence of etiquette. You see, she is thoroughly accustomed to it. All her friends behave exactly the same fashion. 75 years ago, 1948. Mr. Justice J.T. Beaubien, Court of King's Bench, last week gave judgment squashing bylaw 1129, was passed by Council on December 11, 1947, repealing the local option bylaw which had been in effect for many years. The upset bylaw would have permitted licensed premises throughout municipality approved by the Manitoba Liquor Control Board. 50 years ago, 1973, The Clear Lake Campers Association, CLA, believes that the for sale sign now in the post office building is a sure indication that the federal government does not intend to reopen the Wasagamie post office this summer. 20 years ago, 2003, Manitoba Hydro unveiled its first wind monitoring site in the province near Minnedosa Thursday afternoon. The 60-meter tower, 4 miles southwest of Minnedosa on Highway 10, will be used to gather weather data for the next year. We want to assess the economic and technical issues of utilizing renewable wind power to provide an additional source of electricity production, Brennan said. Modern wind turbines are sized to produce about 0.66 to 2.5 megawatts of electricity and are usually clustered in so-called farms made up of 10 to 300 turbines. A 1 megawatt turbine will produce enough power to supply energy to 250 homes. The mother of Marathon of Hope runner Terry Fox said her son wasn't a hero, just an ordinary person who happened to do something extraordinary. He set goals, he had dreams, and his personal values, Betty Fox said in an interview while in Neepawa last week. He loved to win and hated to lose. Fox was in Neepawa as part of a cross-country speaking tour, something she has undertaken yearly since her son lost his battle with cancer. And here we have Home Buddies by Rita Friesen. Remembering Stanley. As I was walking today, a name from the past rose strong and proud. Stanley Kalinowski. There was a memory of him sitting at our kitchen table and in his heavy Polish accent proudly declaring, "I come from old country." My children, listening from afar, stifled laughter, for that was a prominent line from a fashionable television program. I can recall him asking Ed to take the hood ornament off his car, and putting it on his truck he needed the orientation of the ornament to his being in the center of the road. Ed refused. It was often easier to talk about Stanley than to talk to him. His English was rough, not as rough as one would want one to believe, and his manners lacking. Rumors had it that he had unsuccessfully tried the mail-order bride route, that he had got his start in Canada by smuggling gold teeth gained through World War II conflict into Canada by hiding them in his beloved accordion, the very accordion he played at many local talent nights. So I did what I do well, research his history in the Prairie Mountain History book. There's quite a lengthy review of his life written by Morford Smith, and I can see him telling her that she needed to record his history over her asking if she could. And here are some of the facts. Stanley was born in Poland into a comfortably settled family, his father a judge. With political turmoil came relocation to a farm. Then Stanley and his sister sold their share of the farm and purchased a flour mill. In 1938, he was conscripted into the Polish army. In 1939, Poland was crushed between the Russian and German armies, and Stanley was sent as a prisoner of war to Siberia. And it was subsistent existence from there on. It was hard work, cutting logs unless the temperature was below -40 Fahrenheit, poor food at a cost, and bitter, bitter, unending cold. Care packages from his sister, 13 by his count, containing pork, fat, flour, and sometimes a blanket, were the difference between life and death. The misery, human agony, and despair of such conditions was not lessened but the fact that after working for 8 hours, they came back to a camp and buried those who had died in their absence. In 1941, the prisoners were released, traveling until they came under the command of the British, receiving the care and nutrition that they so desperately needed. Recovering health took months, and then Stanley served in the Polish division of the British 8th Army. The service to the British Commonwealth gained him the privilege to come to Canada. He headed to Tony Zagula's farm east of Prairie Mountain. Tony and Stanley's father had been farming neighbors in Poland. Through hard work, Stanley made a life for himself, raises horses and farming, so proud to be Canadian. So what triggered my thoughts of Stanley today? One more negative detail about our political leader. We have seen too many of them in the last years. When people complained Stanley about conditions in Canada, he was quick to encourage them to see what it was like with the true hardship and oppression. I pay your ticket, one way, no return. Thank you, Stanley, for putting life into some perspective. And here's a picture history from the Banner and Press coverage area. This photo was brought to the banner and press by Eleanor Nicholson. The photo is dated June of 1941 and depicts members of the Women's Institute. Eleanor's husband, Cliff, is one of the little boys in the front row. Okay. And thumbs up and thumbs down. Thumbs down to Canada Post, Neepawa branch. How long does the public have to watch our steps while navigating your step? It might be cheaper than a lawsuit. From Gail Cathcart. And editor's note, this thumbs one was received just before repairs to the step at the post office were done. A visit to the location on April 11th found the procedure complete and the step freshly intact once again. We kept the thumb in to acknowledge the concern. Thumbs up to the local toy store, Hidden Hollow. It is a wonderful array of toys, reasonable prices, and excellent customer service. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, please do. I think you will be impressed. From Norma Summers. Thumbs up and thanks to the Beautiful Plains Community Foundation for their donation to the Neepawa Minor Hockey Association, which alleviated the fees for the first shift program. Also, thumbs up to the Neepawa Kin Club for all their work in putting together a fun and well-organized Easter egg hunt. We are fortunate to have so many dedicated volunteers in our community. From Wendy Kaspick. And a big thumbs up to the Beautiful Plains School Division for allowing the Neepawa Filipino Basketball League access to the high school gym. Our more than 300 players owe you a huge thank you. From Grant Hurrell. And thumbs up and thank you to McLaughlin GM for sponsoring our trophies and medals on our last 2022-23 Winter League. And that is from the Neepawa Ballers. And Helen's Kitchen. Helen has included her meatloaf recipe and a bit of history on meatloaf. Meatloaf is a taste of home. Meatloaf is a taste of home, a classic comfort food that never goes out of style. Did you know this oldie but goodie dinner dishes' ancestry spans the globe, dating back to ancient Rome? Marcus Gavius Apicus, a Roman gourmet, famous for his love of food, wrote a cookbook. His meatloaf featured chopped meat combined with spices, bread soaked in wine, formed into a patty, and baked. The meatloaf we know today is a North American creation. Fannie Farmer's 1908 edition of the Boston Cooking School cookbook included 2 variations of meatloaf. Meatloaf flourished in the Depression years and was a symbol of wartime resourcefulness. They used more fillers such as grated carrots and a little meat to help stretch the strained budget. Many manufacturers, such as Campbell's Soup and Quaker Oats, seeing an opportunity for increased sales, put meatloaf recipes on the backs of products. By the 1950s, meatloaf was fancied up with recipes like sherry barbecued meatloaves, mushroom stuffed meatloaves, and frosted meatloaf, where mashed potatoes were slathered on a baked loaf, then broiled for a golden crust. Thanks, Helen. And we have another picture, Gladstone's Glory Years. Pembroke School in 1914. And pictured are those who attended class at Pembroke School in 1914. This photo was featured in the Gladstone's Glory Years booklet series. Pictured from left to right, starting in the back row, are the teacher, not identified, Louise Hyman, third row, Christian Weckenford, Eric Chandler, Dave Hyman, Ralph Hyman, Elmer Cook, and Margaret McBride. Second row, Wilbert Cook, Melman Bossart, Jennings Hyman, Marjorie Chandler, and Bessie Chandler. And the front row was Ralph Bossart, Ruth Bossart, Bill Chandler, and Dick Cook. 2 names had been submitted as possible identification for the teacher when the photo was submitted to be included as part of Gladstone's Glory Years booklet series back in the day. Those were Margaret Miniker and Tace Butler. However, they were noted to be unlikely candidates for those duties that year, as Margaret Miniker had become Mrs. Farney early in 1912, and Tace Butler was attending normal school, later becoming a teacher in Palestine in 1915. RCMP report, Urban and Rural Crime Going in Different Directions, by Owen Devereaux. There are few interesting numbers in the latest regional update from the Spruce Plains RCMP. The town of Neepawa reviewed the report it had received from the detachment during its most recent council meeting on Thursday, April 6. The total number of calls for service to the RCMP for the first 3 months of 2023 were 547. That is less calls than had been reported over the same period of time in 2022. 580 calls from January 1st to March 31st, 2022. A notable change within the numbers, however, can be found within where the service calls are coming from. Urban calls, which consist of Neepawa and Minnedosa, totaled 267, an increase of 62 from the previous year. Rural calls, meanwhile, were listed at 280, a decrease of 100 compared to 2022. Other notable details from the RCMP report included, in total, 143 traffic tickets were distributed in the Spruce Plains detachment area over the 3-month period, with 36 of those within the town of Neepawa. Within the offender management program, 7 files were opened with 48 curfew checks done related to those subjects. 3 of those 7 individuals were found breaching conditions, and 2 warrants have been issued, while 1 offender has moved away from the area. 3 stolen vehicles have been recovered within the town of Neepawa, and several subjects were arrested in connection to the thefts. Those subjects were also believed to be responsible for several other property crimes in the area. And there are currently 2 staffing vacancies with the detachment, along with 2 additional staff members expected to transfer elsewhere by the fall. One of those existing vacancies is expected to be filled by May, while a replacement for one of the fall transfers should be arriving by the end of summer. And a high level of vision for the future. Prairie Mountain Health releases a 5-year strategic plan by Owen Devereux. Prairie Mountain Health, PMH, has unveiled its new strategic plan for the next 5 years. The document, named Strategic Plan 2023 to 2028, Health and Wellness for All, was released earlier this month on the Regional Health Authority's website. This paperwork outlines the health region's high-level vision going forward and identifies the 4 priorities aimed at creating a quality, integrated, and sustainable health system. Those priorities are positive health care experience for Manitobans with a focus on quality health services, improved health system capacity, performance, and accountability, empowered, adaptable, and high-performing workforce, and strengthened fiscal sustainability and value for money. Within those 4 priorities are more specific goals such as increasing public awareness of services, better access to those services within a reduced wait time, and improved client safety, as well as a desire to build upon recruitment and improve supports for healthcare providers. A healthcare roadmap. PMH Board Chair Lon Cullen said the plan is a compilation of months of consultation and analysis, both internally and externally. We are essentially building upon our extensive community engagement processes that assisted with the completion of our comprehensive 2019 Community Health Assessment, Cullen stated. I thank all staff, managers, physicians, as well as our consultation groups for their input and feedback into this very important health planning document. PMH Chief Executive Officer Brian Schoenbert added upon Cullen's remarks by stating the board will ensure that a process is in place to inform the development of the strategic plan. This is our roadmap of where we are going, and how we will get there. It defines who we are, lists strategic goals to achieve our priorities, and provides a solid foundation for the decision making, noted Schoenbert. Routine engagement with our board, leadership, and staff is integral to take action and evaluate whether we are achieving our goals. The complete list of goals and priorities for the Strategic Health Plan can be found on the Prairie Mountain Health website. And modular home rezoning approved. Neepawa Town Council, Thursday, April 6, by Owen Devereux. The approval of a modular housing development in Neepawa has taken a step forward. On Thursday, November 16th, Town Council approved bylaw 322023, allowing for the rezoning of 1.7 acres of land near Gill Drive from industrial zone to a residential modular home zone. This will likely clear the way for establishment of individual lots where modular built homes could be installed. A modular home is a house that is partially constructed in a factory and then shipped to the homeowner's lot, where it's then pieced together. Like traditional homes, modular homes are placed on a permanent foundation. During the public hearing discussing the rezoning request, there was one local objection to the rezoning proposal. The objector brought up concerns related to those types of houses fitting into the nearly commercial area. Manitoba Infrastructure and Transportation was also advised of the project. While it did not have any immediate objection to the plan, they did ask for clarification on the potential impact to traffic and drainage in the area. The developer looking to proceed with the housing spoke on behalf of the rezoning request. They stated the impact to local traffic would be minimum, as it would consist of just 24 suites, single occupancy. They are also planning to move ahead with drainage study. After reviewing the information, Council decided to approve the rezoning, which is specific to just this property. The sale of modular homes has been on the rise across Canada recently, as this style of housing is a more affordable option for budget-conscious homebuyers, such as first-timers and retirees looking to downsize. Neepawa Town Council, miscellaneous news and notes. Again, Owen Devereux. Several infrastructure projects for the town of Neepawa are making progress. Chief Administrative Officer Colleen Sinchishan has provided an update to the restoration of Park Lake Spillway. As of late last week, the work was at around 25% completion. The temporary culvert crossing that was needed to be in place has been removed, and the stockpiling of rock fill is occurring. A temporary bridge structure will also soon be installed. As for ongoing work at the Neepawa Golf and Country Club, the installation of a new bridge on the course has been completed. At the former RCMP building, staff have been clearing the interior of the structure in advance of a rebuild to accommodate the Practical Nursing Diploma program. A mid-November completion is still the target for the renovations to be complete. The Assiniboine Community College program is set to begin in early 2024. Councillor reports. Jason Nadeau provided an update from the volunteer board for the Yellowhead Centre. He noted that they have begun long-term strategic planning for the facility. Nadeau said that they are very supportive of reaching out to the community and forming connections to see if there is any interest in helping to plan for the Yellowhead's future. Maranka Kostenchuk participated in a hand meeting on March 22nd. The group has been looking into the acquisition of the Emergency Response Information, ERI kits. These kits assist emergency responders in situations where a patient may not be able to communicate their conditions. The ERI kits could be provided through a senior initiative program free of charge. Kostenchuk will update Council on their acquisition progress once the new information is available. Lisa Pottinger reviewed Council and Administration's attendance at the most recent Association of Manitoba Municipalities, AGM in Winnipeg. The local coalition also spoke with Agassiz MLA Eileen Clark and attended a session of the provincial legislature. Yvonne Sisley informed Council that the community has received a participation grant which will allow for the hosting of 6 days of outdoor fun and exercise classes at Riverbend Park. Further details to come. As well, a new provider has been confirmed for the Neepawa District Chamber Fair. Select Shows, Carnival and Midway, based out of Beausejour, Manitoba, will be the new provider and expected to bring a larger setup. The Chamber is looking for volunteers to assist with this event. The Chamber Fair is scheduled for May 26th to 28th. Sisley also offered her perspective on the AMM sessions. Murray Parrott expanded upon the previous comments related to the AMM meetings. He noted how our community was used as a positive example in many of the discussions. He said it was great to hear our community always being listed as an example of how to. And some more pictures for us. Sheep shorn and ready for spring, submitted by KDF. Over the past 2 weekends, the sheep at Ralph and Jerry Oliver's farm at Carberry were released from their winter coats. Pictured far left, shearer Sterry Roosevelt making the short work of shearing the fleeces off the sheep. Shearing is hard work, not only for the shearer, but the shepherds and helpers, as each animal has to be caught and then the fleeces have to be packed for shipping. Pictured above, the Olivers have about 180 sheep, and some of the flock are pictured here after the wool has been shorn. And on the left is a newborn lamb. They're kind of cute. Oh, Arden Mixed Curling Bonspiel results. And there's 3 pictures here. Congratulations to all the winners at the Arden Mixed Curling Bonspiel held April 6th to 9th, as well as a big thank you to the volunteers and teams for their help and participation. Top picture, first event winner against Terry Ursel, sponsored by the Pleck Construction. From left to right, Kevin Paramore skip, Kayla Hankey, Harvey Hankey, and Ashley Hankey. And the middle picture is the second event winners against Grant Babcock, sponsored by Thomas Window and Glass. From left to right, Brian Scott skip, Donna Scott, Jordan Twerden, and Amy Clark, presented by Chris, Tanya, and Preston Spiss. And in the bottom picture, third event winners against Kayla Hunter, sponsored by Tridacon Crop Savers. Left to right, Larry Fisher skip, Murray Reiner, Ken Oswald, and Pete Banyard. And Mitchelluk makes college commitment. Submitted. And pictured is Braden Mitchelluk. The Neepawa Titans are proud to announce that forward Braden Mitchelluk has committed to the Jamestown Jimmies for the 2023-24 season. The Jimmies are a Division I ACHA program in Jamestown, North Dakota that competes in the Midwest College Hockey Conference. Titans head coach, general manager Ken Pearson, had this to say about Mitchelluk going to Jamestown. Braden was a big part of helping change our identity as a Titan. He was very involved in the community, volunteering whenever asked. On the ice, he was not one to back down from anyone. He was a great teammate on and off the ice during his time in Neepawa. About his time in Neepawa, Mitchelluk has this to say: I am beyond grateful for my time in Neepawa. I was given every opportunity to excel not only on the ice, but off the ice as well. I would like to thank my coaches, teammates, and billets for everything they have done for me over the last 3 years. With that being said, I am very excited to start my education and continue my hockey career with the University of Jamestown. Mitchelluk joined the Neepawa Titans in the 2021-22 and played in 109 regular season games, accumulating 19 goals, 30 assists, along with 146 penalty minutes. The entire organization would like to congratulate Braden and wish him all the best in Jamestown. And new grassland management planning initiative, good for grasslands and the environment. And it's submitted by Wayne Hildebrand. And pictured is Carol Graham, a rangeland and extension specialist. We often hear that livestock production is responsible for a wide range of environmental problems like greenhouse gas emissions, land degradation, and water pollution. Is all livestock production bad for the environment? Manitoba Habitat Heritage Corporation, MHHC, a non-profit charitable organization with a conservation and wildlife habitat mandate, has been working in partnership with Manitoba beef producers for the past 7 years, delivering the Keep Grazing Program, now called the Grassland Stewardship Program. In 2022, the program allocated $1 million to support 88 livestock producers to fund pasture infrastructure projects, like upgrading fencing and watering systems, on 60,000 acres of pasture in Manitoba. So why would a conservation organization like MHHC partner with the livestock industry? Could there be some positive environmental impacts associated with the livestock production? I asked MHHC's Habitat Field Manager, Curtis Hullock, at this very question. Livestock production plays a valuable role in maintaining grasslands, providing wildlife habitat, enhancing biodiversity, building soil fertility, sequestering carbon, and building climate change resilience, said Curtis. That's a lot of positive impacts. Cattle producers and their livestock are fundamental to the future of the grassland environment. A well-managed rotational grazing system increases plant density and diversity. This is beneficial for the cattle, increases farm profitability, and provides habitat for wildlife, Curtis relayed. Grassland nesting birds are at risk in Manitoba and Canada, primarily due to habitat loss and fragmentation. Their future survival depends on maintaining healthy grasslands and the vegetation management performed by livestock. To recognize the grassland bird habitat that cattle producers provide, MHHC received funding from the Environment and Climate Change Canada and partnered with Manitoba beef producers to deliver a 3-year rangeland management plan initiative. In 2021, Carol Graham expanded her role as rangeland extension specialist to work with the cattle producers in western Manitoba with the mandate to promote rangeland management planning. The intent is to enhance grassland productivity with grazing systems that supports the economic viability of the producer while providing wildlife benefits such as conserving habitat for grassland bird species at risk. Rangeland management is the utilization of livestock to influence grazing distribution, carrying capacity, and timing to sync with the grass development and performance, said Carroll. It requires a vegetation inventory to identify plant species, define unique landscape features, and identify areas that are distinct grassland types. It is a science-based approach to where data collection and analysis allows identification of rangeland health, trends, and potential problems that can be addressed with the implementation or modification of a grazing system, Carroll said. Cattle producers are stewards of their grasslands. Rangeland management planning is simply a support tool for producers that helps improve management decisions, which ultimately help to achieve healthy and productive pastures. MHHC is producing rangeland management plans at no cost for the cattle producers participating in the Grassland Stewardship Program offered by MHHC. The minimum pasture area required is 320 acres. The rangeland management plans outline opportunities for change along with the incentives for improvements to the infrastructure of the pasture. There are a number of very good initiatives happening in Manitoba with sustainable livestock production and rangeland management planning, said Curtis. We are proud to be partners with the Manitoba beef producers who are working to enhance biodiversity on the landscape, raise high-quality, nutritious food, and support a healthy rural economy. And we're on to the classifieds, and there are 3 obituaries here today. Leonard George Tyerman, December 6, 1930 to March 31st, 2023. Len Tyerman passed away peacefully on March 31st. He was a man who wore many different hats, a husband, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. His early years were spent in the Kelwood area. He was the oldest son of Fletcher and Mary Tyerman, brother to Effie, Elda, Roger, Ron, and Brian. Growing up, he was interested in gardening and had a top 4-H garden, winning him a trip to Ottawa, but due to the polio epidemic, he was unable to fulfill his dream of going. He was an avid curler, curling in the high school provincials, losing out on the final game in Winnipeg, but won the Resser event in Brandon. As an adult, he was an active member in the Boy Scouts of Canada in Killarney and Plumas. He coached ball and minor hockey. As he aged, he became an avid supporter of his kids, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, as they were involved in various activities. He taught school for a total of 25 years in Winnipeg, Killarney, McCreary, and finally Plumas. He met and married Gwen Deere of Arden. They both taught in Plumas, where Gwen still lives. They raised 3 children, Gail Arnold Hogg of Brandon, Shannon Yando of Plumas, and Garth Tyman of Fort St. John. Grandchildren, Matt, Casey Ryan, Chelsea, Chris, Zach, Leah, Parker, and Kylie, Sean. Great-grandchildren, Cassandra, Kieran, Liam, Tristan, Tyson, Casey, Everett, Gemma, Gunnar, and Wyatt. Len was involved in many organizations over the years. President of the Sports Committee and Plumas Curling Club, where he curled until his health prevented him from doing so. He was an avid bowler and bowled in the Western Canadians, a member of the Plumas United Church and the Plumas Seniors Club. He spent many hours at the Seniors Club after retirement, competing in senior sports. Charter member and president of the Plumas Lions Club, where he received the Melvin Jones Fellowship Award for outstanding dedication and humanitarian service. Every May through August, Lennon worked for Barkers of Brandon as an insurance broker, field man, and a chief hail adjuster. When he wasn't working, he was honing his golf game. He loved a good game of golf and took every opportunity to take it around. Even after the accident, he enjoyed the game. Gardening was a favorite pastime, often being the first to have peas in the ground. He shared the love of working in the dirt with all 3 of his children. Camping was also an activity he enjoyed. He made friends at every campground. Otter Lake and the wonderful spot by the water was a welcome getaway. Many memories made around the fire, in a canoe, or sitting on a deck. A life well lived. Predeceased by his parents Fletcher and Mary, his brothers Brian and Roger, sister Elda, in-laws Teddy and Lydia Deer, and brother-in-law Bill and his wife Louise. The family would like to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Ong, Neepawa and Gladstone Hospitals, the staff at TCM for their compassion, friendship, care, and concern over the past 3 years. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to the Plumas United Church, Box 67, Plumas, Manitoba. Manitoba Brain Injury Association, Sherbrooke Street, Winnipeg, Manitoba. And Sarah Klaus Niestromen. Sarah Klaus Niestromen of Neepawa, Manitoba, passed away on March 26, 2023. While 80 years of age, her death was sudden and unexpected. Sarah was a bold and industrious woman, bursting with curiosity and a thirst for adventure. She was determined. Once she set her mind to something, she seldom could be deterred, save with 2 exceptions: her faith and devotion to Jehovah, and her love for her husband, Norman Klaus, predeceased. Sarah was not one to sit still, and she truly took charge of defining reality. Born on September 4th, 1942, to Raymond and Mary Stroman, Sarah was one of 5 children, siblings Barry, George, Jean, and Rosemary. She grew up on the family farm in Brookdale, Manitoba, where she received most of her education. Graduating from Neepawa Collegiate, Sarah later moved to Winnipeg and graduated from the Manitoba Institute of Trades and Technology with a secretarial degree. After beginning her career, Sarah later moved to Saskatoon, where she met and fell in love with Norman. They were married on May 14, 1966, and later began their married life together, serving the ministry in Rosetown, Saskatchewan. Later, they took up the ministry work in West Africa, where they served for over 5 years. Sarah truly loved this time in their lives, as if it represented a perfect balance of what moved her heart. She would, decades later, continue to share her experience in Africa with anyone she met. After the missionary work, Sarah and Norman returned to Canada, residing in Neepawa, Brookdale, and Carberry areas over the years. They continued to travel, and when they could, including frequent excursions to Mexico. Sarah loved the arts. Wherever she lived, her home was always filled with the beautiful art and music. Wherever she had the chance to enjoy a live performance, she would seize the opportunity with great enthusiasm. If you had an opportunity to meet Sarah, you would like to remember her. She was generous and giving, sharing with everyone she came across. Sometimes she would share a quiet word of support, advice, or admonishment, and other times she would share a neatly wrapped and discreetly given bit of jewelry, as her sisters, nieces, and family well know. Sarah left this life as she lived it. It brings her family some comfort in knowing that Sarah's final moments were likely preparing to attend one of the things that gave her the most pleasure, gathering with her brothers and sisters at the local Kingdom Hall of Jehovah's Witnesses. While her husband has already passed and she did not have any children, her death leaves an empty space in the lives of her family and those who knew her well. She was predeceased by her husband Norman Klaus, her brothers Barry Stroman and George Stroman, and sister Jean McAllister. She is survived by her sister Rosemary Hanratty of Surrey, sister-in-law Gabrielle Lowenstoff of Victoria, sister-in-law Joyce Stroman of Neepawa, cousins Wilma Sawatsky, Peggy Jones, Robert Fleming. Sarah will also be missed by her nieces and nephews, Natalie, Michelle, Corrine, Nigel, Laura, Jeffrey, Catherine, Jennifer, and Rebecca, along with their 16 children. And finally, Theodore Grant Hone, November 23rd, 1944 to April 8th, 2023. It is with great sorrow the family of Ted announces his passing. Ted is survived by his devoted wife, Odelia, his children Shelley, Jenny, Chantel, and Durand, and his grandchildren, Kirsten, Brooke, Thor, Cora, and Naya. Ted grew up in the Waldersea Grass River area of Manitoba. Ted's adventurous spirit started as a teenager when he left the farm to start working. Over the years, he worked in mining and construction in many northern and remote communities, including Flin Flon, Thompson, Snow Lake, Churchill, Stewart, and Galler Creek. Ted settled on the farm after marrying Odelia and continued to mine over the winter for many years. Ted loved the outdoors, enjoyed fishing, hunting, mountain biking, and camping along with his family. He enjoyed big family gatherings and could always be found sitting at the card table. He had a good sense of humor and loved sharing stories and telling jokes. Ted developed a love for traveling in his later years. He traveled to Texas, Arizona, Utah, Cuba, Morocco, China, South America, and many other places. And he spent many winters in Osoyoos, BC. Yet he liked coming back to the farm and his weekly coffee outings in Glenetta. The family expresses deep gratitude to all the doctors, nurses, and healthcare providers who provided exceptional care. It was Ted's wishes to be cremated and have no memorial service. In lieu of flowers, donations can be made to a charity of your choice. And Club 55 Bowling. April 6, 23, Ladies High Single and Triple, Vivian Oswald, 207 and 533. Men's High Single, Frank Parada, 258. Men's High Triple, Len Pritchard, 571. Other scores to note, Judy Gabler, 150, 187. Melvin Oswald, 169. Len Pritchard, 192, 203, 175. Calvin Goetz, 154, 156. Vivian Oswald, 185. Carol Libetelier, 176, 162. Lawrence Smith, 151, 152. Muriel Parada, 171. Eleanor Scott, 159, 155. Daryl Gabler, 153, 171, and 243. And Ben Parrott recognized with UNB Track and Field Award. The University of New Brunswick announced recently that a former Neepawa area collegiate student, Ben Parrott, was the recipient of an honor via the REDS Men's Cross Country 2023 Team Awards. The award Parrott received was the Red and Black Award. Parrott is in his 4th year with UNB. And that concludes the banner and press for Friday, April 14th, 2023. And I hope you enjoyed your time with us. Thanks for listening.